How much is Iran selling in oil a day now?
Somewhere short of 2 million.
So it went from 300,000 barrels a day to 2 million barrels a day. That's about $80 billion that the Ayatollah has made because your administration refuses to enforce oil sanctions.
No, we do enforce oil sanctions.
Well, you do so terribly because the number has increased almost tenfold. You're saying it's a heavy cost. They went from 300,000 barrels a day to 2 million barrels a day. Where's the heavy cost? That's an extra 1.7 million barrels a day. That's $80 billion. True or false, 90% of Hamas's funding comes from Iran?
No, not 90%. It is a large, it's a
Okay, how much is it
amount.
then?
I don't know at this
Of course, you're in charge of the damn region, and you don't, what do you mean you don't know?
At this exact moment, I can't tell you.
All right, how much of Hezbollah's
structures.
funding comes from Iran?
Huge amount.
It's about 90%. Both of those are about 90%. Ambassador Leaf, you are the administration's point person on the Middle East. How's that working out?
I love my job, Senator.
Have things in the Middle East gotten better or worse since Joe Biden became president?
We have had a series of black swan events, so no doubt the region is in a very difficult state.
Is your answer things have gotten worse?
My answer is that a series of black swan events have crowded upon
Have they gotten better? You're not suggesting things have gotten better, are you?
No, I have not.
In fact, they've gotten a lot worse.
That's the nature of black swan.
So it's black swans. You guys had nothing to do with it. It's not mistakes you made. It's just something that happened externally.
Well, I think an assessment of the events of October 7th is still to be done. I can't speak to that.
Okay, so did y'all make any mistakes that led to it?
I'm not sure.
All right, here's one. How about giving hundreds of millions of dollars to the Gaza Strip, much of which ended up in the hands of Hamas? Was that a mistake now that we saw what happened on October 7th?
I'm going to defer to my colleague from USAID. I'm not aware of hundreds of millions of dollars going to Hamas from U.S. coffers.
All right, how about $100 billion to Iran? Was that a mistake?
I'm not sure what you're referring to, Senator.
Well, you tell me, how much money has this administration flowed to Iran?
We have not flowed money to Iran.
Really?
We have money in accounts that are restricted for humanitarian use only.
And money's not fungible?
This regime will always spend money on these kinds of activities, the proxy activities.
When Joe Biden became president, how much was Iran selling in oil a day?
I don't have that figure for you, Senator.
Of course you don't. The answer is about 300,000 barrels a day. How much is Iran selling in oil a day now?
Somewhere short of 2 million.
So it went from 300,000 barrels a day to 2 million barrels a day. That's about $80 billion that the Ayatollah has made because your administration refuses to enforce oil sanctions.
No, we do enforce oil sanctions.
Well, you do so
Senator.
terribly because the number has increased almost tenfold.
But because of the strictures that we put on, the sanctions that we put on, the targeting that we've done, 230 alone directed towards those who traffic in Iranian oil, that has imposed a heavy cost on Iran, and we estimate that
Wait. You're saying it's a heavy cost. They went from 300,000 barrels a day to 2 million barrels a day. Where's the heavy cost? That's an extra 1.7 million barrels a day. That's $80 billion. True or false, 90% of Hamas's funding comes from Iran?
No, not 90%. It is a large, it's a
Okay, how much is it
amount.
then?
I don't know at this
Of course, you're in charge of the damn region, and you don't, what do you mean you don't know?
At this exact moment, I can't tell you.
All right, how much of Hezbollah's
structures.
funding comes from Iran?
Huge amount.
It's about 90%. Both of those are about 90%. Do you think it made the world safer or less safe to take a theocratic lunatic like the Ayatollah who chants death to America and death to Israel and to flow $100 billion? Did that make us more safe or less safe?
The U.S. is not flowing money to Iran, Senator.
What about the $6 billion in hostage payments?
Not a penny is moved.
And money's not fungible? They can't put that up for credit facilities?
Not a penny is moved.
You're where you're under oath.
I am.
And could they put that money up for credit facilities to use money to fund their terror activity?
I'm not sure who would be in the position of lending them money at this point, Senator. We do have plenty of sanctions. Iran is one of the most heavily sanctioned regimes.
But you're not enforcing them. This administration, every lunatic on earth that wants to kill us, this administration gives money to. All right, let me ask you this. Israel has said it is their policy to utterly eliminate Hamas. Does this administration, does President Biden support Israel in its commitment to utterly eliminate Hamas?
Of course.
Of course, then why are you calling for an immediate ceasefire before they eliminate Hamas?
Israel has accepted that proposal.
No, they have not.
They have.
Is there a ceasefire that's happened?
Hamas has not yet fully accepted
Is there a Israel most certainly has not. I'm aware the Biden administration has told the press that Israel has.
The Israeli leadership.
So I asked you a question. Do you support Israel's military objective of utterly eliminating Hamas? You said yes, and the next sentence you said, but they should cease fire right now and not eliminate Hamas.
No, I agree with the way that the president characterized it, Senator, on May 31st, which is to say that we agree with the objective that Hamas never again control the Gaza Strip or threaten Israel. That will not be achieved by military means alone.
So it's not no, we said their military objective was to defeat Hamas. So you just said it's impossible to defeat Hamas.
When you
Is that
first
right?
posed the question, you said eliminate Hamas. Over
I said
time,
utterly eliminate Hamas. I didn't say over time, not over 1,000
No.
years. I said defeat an enemy because they are murderers who murdered 1,200 people who raped women and little girls.
it won't be done by military means alone.
Okay, so it is the position of this administration it is impossible by military means to defeat Hamas.
Yes, it is.
Let me ask you, you also want to see, essentially as a reward for October 7th, a Palestinian state.
It's not a reward.
It's not a reward. It just achieves what they want as a benefit for these murders. Let me ask you something. If Hamas is governed by Hamas, if Hamas governs Gaza, how is Israel's safety protected? It's an impressive job, Mr. Chairman. Bang, bang.
Let the witness finish answering the
You
question.
should not be frightened of these questions, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman's time has expired.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ambassador Jacobson, you previously served in Tajikistan.
Yes, sir.
Of what period of time?
I was there from 2006 to 2009.
I'm sure you've seen the news that broke this week about 8 Tajiks who came to this country illegally over the southern border, were apprehended by the Biden administration,
Yes, sir.
were quote-unquote vetted, and then were released. And they've been arrested this week because of their affiliations with ISIS-K and over concerns that they were plotting a major terror attack in the United States. In your experience, how dangerous is ISIS-K?
ISIS-K remains a threat both in the region to which I've been nominated and into the world and also to our homeland. And I, if confirmed, would sort of welcome the opportunity to further discuss how we can combat this sort of terrorist threat. I'm a little bit out of the loop on Tajikistan in particular, having left there 15 years ago, but of course I still do follow it.
How concerned should Americans be that this administration released 80 illegal aliens who are Tajiks with connections to ISIS-K?
I am not privy to the intelligence or the law enforcement activity or really any of that. I have mostly read about this in the news, but I certainly think it's incumbent on all of us, all the agencies of the U.S. government, to protect our homeland. And
this is the same terrorist group that murdered 145 people in Moscow at the Opera House, came in with automatic weapons and mowed down civilians. Is that right?
It's my understanding that, yes, there were Tajiks involved in that operation in Moscow.
Well, I will say, I can tell you Texans are deeply concerned that the administration keeps releasing illegal immigrants with ties to terrorists, and we are living on borrowed time. I believe there is a higher likelihood today of a major terrorist attack in the United States than there has been any time since September 11th. And this administration's open border with 11 million illegal immigrants coming across it is an invitation for terrorists, for Hamas, for Hezbollah, for Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and for ISIS-K to come and murder Americans. And it is utterly indefensible. And yet today, the Biden administration is releasing yet more illegal immigrants into this country. They do it day after day after day. And we are going to see a lot more dead bodies as a result of it. All right, let's shift topics. A few weeks ago, Secretary Blinken appeared before this committee, and I questioned him about policy decisions made by the Biden administration, which have allowed $100 billion to flow to Iran, including access to a $10 billion pot of money involving Iraqi electricity in euros and dinars. This money enabled the Ayatollah to fund Hamas and Hezbollah. This money funded the October 7th terrorist attack, the single worst one-day massacre of Jews since the Holocaust. It is right now funding Hezbollah's push to trigger a regional Middle East war all the way through this morning. Ms. Gavito, you served for 2 years as Deputy Assistant Secretary for Iran, Iraq, and Public Diplomacy. Then you became the Acting Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary for Near Eastern Affairs. What was your role in issuing the waivers giving Iran access to that pot of money?
Thank you very much, Senator. With regard to the $6 billion in question,
The 10 billion, not the
sorry.
not the $6 billion in ransom. That's another problematic decision.
Apologies. With regard to the electricity waivers, I, as Deputy Assistant Secretary, did not have a direct role in that particular decision. That being said, certainly was part of those discussions. As Ambassador Jacobson has noted, the intent behind those waivers was to incentivize the Iraqi government.
I'm not asking about the intent. Did you support those waivers?
I was not in a decision-making capacity.
Did you agree with the decision?
I would have to review, Senator. Yes, I believe that incentivizing Iraq to divest itself of Iranian oil is positive.
Okay, Ambassador Jacobson, these waivers will have to be renewed this summer or they expire. If confirmed, would you support reissuing those waivers?
So I'd note that those waivers have spanned at least 2 administrations and been renewed 21 times since 2018, if I'm not mistaken. I take heart from the commitment of the government of Iraq to achieve energy independence by 2030.
That's not an answer to the question. Would you support reissuing those waivers?
Well, I don't think it would be up to me, and I would be more than interested in serving as part of the conversation.
There is a consistent pattern in this administration of giving money to theocratic lunatics who want to murder us. $100 billion to the Ayatollah Khamenei is the single most catastrophic foreign policy decision of this administration. And today, this administration continues to refuse to enforce the oil sanctions, enriching the Ayatollah, funding Hamas, funding Hezbollah, funding those who are murdering Israelis and trying to murder Americans. How does it make sense to give billions and billions of dollars to theocratic lunatics who want to kill us?
Thank you for that question, Senator. I personally am very clear-eyed about the Iranian threat. I think I shared with you, and I'll share with others, that I have been myself on the receiving end of Iranian death threat information, including during my time in Ashgabat when President Niyazov used to remind me that the Iranians had a missile pointed at my bedroom. With regards to the funds that are kept in restricted accounts that are overseen by the Treasury Department, that are the subject of an extensive system of safeguards, these funds will never reach the government of Iran. These funds have to stay overseas, and they have to be used for humanitarian purposes. You could ask, doesn't that mean that it frees up money for their massive terrorism campaigns, which of course are heinous? And I would argue that Iran, unfortunately, is always going to focus on destabilizing activity over supporting the humanitarian needs of its own people. With regards to the sanctions, the administration hasn't lifted any sanctions, and as far as I know, it's implemented another 700 sanctions.
But it refuses to enforce them. My time's expired, but the results are indisputable. And Iran has gone from selling 300,000 barrels a day of oil to selling 2 million barrels of oil a day. That is funding this war of terror against us. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Shapiro, you've worked on Iran-related issues throughout this administration. You were on the team headed by Rob Malley, and you're now at the Defense Department. Meanwhile, the Biden administration has allowed the Iranian regime to build up a ghost fleet of tankers, which are third-country flagged tankers. That fleet grew from about 70 vessels at the beginning of the administration to almost 400 tankers today. The Iranian regime used that ghost fleet to ship over 1 billion barrels of oil and to make unaccountable tens, if not hundreds of billions of dollars. When Joe Biden came into power, Iran was selling roughly 300,000 barrels of oil a day. Today, due to the Biden administration's appeasement of Iran, Iran is selling roughly 2 million barrels of oil a day. Those billions of dollars went directly to fund terrorism. They went to the Houthis, they went to Hamas, they went to Hezbollah. They pay for the Houthis' terrorism and for their weapons. They paid for the October 7th atrocities in Israel. The Biden administration refused to meaningfully enforce our sanctions, and we're seeing the consequences with war in the Middle East. In your judgment, how has the Biden administration's appeasement of Iran and refusal to enforce sanctions against Iran, how has that worked out for the safety and security of Israel and the safety and security of America?
Thank you, Senator. A number of the questions you raise about sanctions enforcement are the province of the Treasury Department, and I simply, on behalf of the Defense Department, will have to defer to my colleagues there. I will tell you that the subject of the hearing focuses on how we are responding to this particular threat of an Iranian-sponsored and backed organization, the Houthi. Before you arrived, we also spoke a bit about the U.S. response to other Iranian proxies.
Okay, I had a question. How's this working out for the safety and security of Israel and the safety and security of America? You're not answering that question.
The answer I can provide is that we are making very clear to Iran, through our posture in the region, through the assistance we provide to our partners, including Israel, in its need to defend itself, to our own responses when Iran and Iranian-backed organizations have targeted our personnel and tragically have killed 3 of our personnel, and in their sponsorship of the Houthi military strikes against free shipping in the Red Sea, that we will respond. And Iran
with all respect, that's baloney. And the Ayatollah has heard the message. Let me ask you, how many Ghost Fleet vessels did the Biden administration sanction before October 7th?
Again, sanctions matters belong to the Treasury Department, so I don't know.
Do you know the answer?
I don't know the answer and would have to defer to the Department of Treasury.
And is the Biden administration concerned about the billions of dollars they continue to flow to the Ayatollah today? Right now, today, that money is flowing to the Ayatollah because there are 400 ships in the Ghost Fleet that this administration won't sanction. The Ayatollah is selling much of that oil to communist China. The revenue is being used to fund Hamas, to fund Hezbollah, to fund the Houthis. And the Biden administration's response is, well, we made very clear there will be consequences. Baloney. Cut off the money. Why will the Biden administration not cut off the money from Iran?
Senator, I really have to stay in the lane of the Department of Defense. What we have made very clear.
Did you work with Rob Malley and his task force?
I worked for a few months as an advisor to then Special Envoy Malley, yes.
And you were ambassador to Israel. You have long experience in the region. I find it impossible that you have no views on the $100 billion plus that Joe Biden has gifted to the Ayatollah that has been used to murder Americans and murder Israelis. I'm asking you, isn't it time to cut off the money?
On behalf of the Defense Department, what I can say is that when we see Iran, which we do see on a daily and regular basis, supporting terrorism, providing weapons, providing intelligence, providing sponsorship and training to terrorist organizations, we make very clear to Iran that
but
not
you
only
don't make clear. If they continue to have the money, you're not making it clear. If you say, here's $100 billion, but you know what? We're going to send you a stern letter. Well, that $100 billion is being used to fund weapons. Let me ask you, all right, and it's not just Iran, by the way, the Houthis. Listen, the Trump administration rightly designated the Houthis as a foreign terrorist organization. Within a month of taking office, what did the Biden administration do? Delisted the Houthis. Now, finally, last month, the Biden administration was forced to relist the Houthis and to designate them as a specially designated global terrorist group. How did it work out, delisting the Houthis for 3 years. Did they behave just quietly, or did they continue to be the terrorists they've been the whole time, even while the administration was trying to appease them?
Some of this is Special Envoy Len King's province. What we have done, as the Houthis have demonstrated through their actions that they are behaving as a terrorist organization, is not only that designation, but also the defensive operation of Operation Prosperity Guardian.
So prior to January of this year, they weren't behaving as terrorists?
They were not shooting at ships in the Red Sea until
Were they terrorists last
November
year?
of last year.
Were the Houthis terrorists last year?
They were designated as a designation that took.
I'm asking you, is it DOD's view? Were the Houthis terrorists in 2023? Yes or no?
They were a designated terrorist organization as of a few days ago when it took office on February 16th.
And your delisting them was indefensible, and it's proven catastrophic.